Ever stop to think about population? It's really the story of, well, us. How many of us are there? Where are we all headed? And what on earth does it all mean for our future? We're going to break it all down for you, drawing on some fantastic material prepared by economics facilitator Mr. Tomy PC. So let's just dive right in.
So let's start with the big number. Right now, you and I are sharing this planet with about 7.7 billion other people. Just let that sink in for a second. Billions. Because if you rewind the clock just 200 years, that number was barely over 1 billion. The growth? I mean, it's just been explosive.
And guess what? We're not stopping there. We're on a trajectory to hit 10 billion people, maybe as soon as 2056. Now you might think, okay, big numbers, so what? Well, understanding why this is happening, it's not just for economists. It's about figuring out the future for all of us.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll grasp the big picture. Then we'll look at the three big engines that drive these numbers. After that, we'll get into how to read a country's story just by its population, what all these changes mean in the real world, and we'll finish with a really interesting question. Is there such a thing as an optimal population?
Right, Section 1, the sheer scale. Think about this. It took all of human history, tens of thousands of years, for us to reach the first billion. But to add the next 7 billion, we did that in just the last 200 years. That incredible acceleration, that's the real story here.
So what's actually making these numbers move? What's driving this change? Well, it really boils down to three key things. Let's call them the three population engines. They're the forces that decide if a country's population is going to grow, shrink, or kind of stay put.
Okay, engine number 1, the birth rate. This is pretty straightforward, right? You can think of it as the gas pedal for population growth. It's the primary way new people get added to the total count, and it's really the most fundamental driver of population increase. But here's where it gets really interesting. What actually affects that birth rate? It's not just one thing. You've got things like living standards and access to contraception, which usually push the number down. Then you have customs or religion, which can do the opposite. And a huge one, when more women join the workforce, or when people, on average, get married later, yep, birth rates tend to go down. All right, so if the birth rate is the gas pedal, then engine number 2, the death rate, is kind of like the brakes. It's the counterbalance. It's the number of people we lose from the population each year. And that's simple math. Births minus deaths. That's what gives you a country's natural rate of population change. And just like with birds, a whole lot of things influence the death rate. I mean, better food, safer housing, and of course, modern medicine, all of that pushes the rate way down. But on the flip side, you have natural disasters or wars, which can cause it to spike, sometimes tragically. You know, that difference is often one of the starkest lines you can draw between different economies around the world.
And that brings us to our third and final engine, net migration. So we've covered people being born and people dying. This one is all about people moving. It's the number of people coming into a country versus the number of people leaving. Pretty simple, right? If more people come in than go out, the population gets a boost. But why do people move? What makes someone pack up their entire life and go somewhere new? Well, the reasons are usually things we can all understand. It's the search for a better life, for higher living standards, for a decent job with good pay, and maybe, most of all, for safety. Just a stable place to call home. Okay, so we've got our three engines: births, deaths, and migration. Now let's see what happens when you put them all together and how they actually shape a country. This is where we get into population structure, and honestly, the materials from Mr. Tomy PC provide a super clear way to visualize all of this.
So, here's a wild thought. What if I told you that you could see a country's entire story, its past, its present, and even get clues about its future, all in a single picture? Sounds impossible, right? Well, it's not. The answer is something called a population pyramid. And boom, here's a perfect example. This is Japan. Take a look. See how narrow it is at the bottom? That's your clue right there. Not a lot of babies being born in recent years. Now follow it up to the top. See how wide it is? That tells you people are living for a really long time. So this pyramid is what you'd call top-heavy. It's the picture of an aging nation. And if you want to see just how extreme the differences can get, check this out. On one side, you have Monaco. The median age there? 53. Now look at Niger. The median age is just 15. 15. I mean, that one number tells you you're looking at two completely different worlds facing totally different challenges and opportunities.
Okay, so why does any of this matter? The key thing to get is that these are not just numbers on a chart. They create these huge ripple effects in the real world, stuff that impacts everything from your job prospects to the environment. So let's dive into those consequences.
So if a country's population is growing, it's kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, hey, you've got more consumers, a bigger workforce, and that can really fire up the economy. But on the other hand, all those people put a ton of pressure on resources like water and food, and you can get serious problems with things like urban crowding.
And what about the flip side? An aging population, like we saw with Japan's pyramid. Well, they have their own unique set of headaches. You end up with a smaller group of working-age people trying to support a much larger group of retirees. That means a huge demand for healthcare, massive government spending on things like pensions, and you risk the whole economy becoming a bit, well, slower and less innovative.
Which leads us to maybe the most interesting question of all. When you weigh all these pros and cons, is there a perfect number? Is there such a thing as an optimal population size for a country to have?
Well, in economics, they actually have a term for this. It's called the optimal population. And it's all about finding that perfect balance, that sweet spot. The goal isn't just to have the most people, it's to have the right number of people to maximize the standard of living for everyone based on the resources and technology you have. It's quality over quantity.
But, and this is the big but, what's optimal today might not be optimal tomorrow. Think about it. Every new technology, every new resource we find, it changes the equation. So this idea of a perfect population, it's not some fixed number you can aim for. It's this constantly moving target, a challenge that every single country is grappling with all the time.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the forces shaping our world's population. I want to say a huge thank you to you for joining us, and a special shout out, of course, to Mr. Tomy PC from Tips Career. His fantastic source material really was the backbone for everything we talked about today. Hope to see you next time.